Hi, Medea. Vanished.
Hello, I'm not sure why I'm supposed to be on here, so I'll disappear.
It's nice to see you.
Yes, it is, Medea.
So we are live, so let's go with Jasmine.
Bienvenidos al seminario Hablan los médicos cubanos para conmemorar el 15º aniversario de la Brigada Médica Henry Reeve. Welcome to Cuban Doctors Speak, a webinar to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the Henry Reeves Medical Brigade. Este evento será en inglés con interpretación simultánea al español. Así que antes de empezar el evento voy a compartir unas indicaciones sobre cómo escuchar esa transmisión en español. And this event's going to be in English with simultaneous interpretation into Spanish. So before we begin, I'm just going to share some brief instructions on how you can listen to the Spanish. Para escuchar la interpretación, puede hacerlo o viendo la transmisión en vivo en Facebook o por medio de la aplicación de Zoom en su computadora, teléfono o tableta. Lo que va a hacer es escoger el canal de español y se hace así. Si está usando la aplicación de Zoom en su computadora, busque un icono de un globo terráqueo que dice interpretación. Y eso va a estar al pie de su pantalla en la barra de herramientas. ¿Ya? Haga clic en el globo y seleccione español del menú y ya está. Ahora, si está usando la aplicación de Zoom en su teléfono o en su tableta, el proceso es similar. Pero busca el icono con 3 puntos. Presiónalo para ver una lista de opciones y de esa lista seleccione interpretación de idiomas o language interpretation si tiene el menú en inglés. Y de ahí seleccione español y luego presione el botón que dice finalizar o done. Y no se olvide de ese último pasito que es importante para poder escuchar. Ojo que desafortunadamente la aplicación de Zoom para sistemas operativos de Linux no incluye esta opción de interpretación. Si tiene algún problema técnico, puede comunicarse con Leonardo por medio del chat o también puede simplemente ver la transmisión en vivo en español en la página de Facebook de Cuba Nobel Committee. Y el enlace para esa página la deben de estar poniendo en el chat ahorita mismo. Es todo. Muchas gracias. Many thanks.
Gracias. Thank you, Jasmine and Beth, for your essential work in interpreting today. Saludos. Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Cuba Nobel Campaign Committee, I would like to give a warm Cuba-like welcome to all watching around the world and our distinguished guest speakers. My name is Angelica Salazar. I'm a member of the campaign committee, and I'm honored to introduce some heroic Cuban health professionals who are currently on the front lines and saving lives during this global pandemic, and who are with us today. We're so grateful. So last Saturday, Cuba, and along with the rest of the world, celebrated the 15-year anniversary of Cuba's International Henry Reeve Medical Brigade. For those of you that aren't familiar with the brigade, it is a contingent of Cuban health professionals that travels worldwide to provide urgent health care in response to disasters, epidemics, and emergencies. In this victorious light, our campaign's mission is to promote and mobilize support to nominate the Henry Reeve Brigade for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize Award. Beyond the prize, our work is to educate the global public about how this small but mighty island nation, Cuba, continues to address the world's greatest challenges, from being first responders to climate change, man-made disasters, to developing a vaccine against COVID-19. Cuba demonstrates to the world what global solidarity looks like, with courage, selflessness, and love for humanity, despite the US government's ongoing economic sanctions and attempts to discredit their internationalist healthcare program. The campaign launched in mid-June, led by our fearless co-chairs, Alicia Jarapco and Medea Benjamin. And we have since gathered over 35,000 signers on our petition to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, You too will be moved to join this global campaign. Our campaign is aligned with similar campaigns happening all over the world, calling for the Nobel Peace Prize to be awarded to the Henry Reeve Brigade. We have received endorsements from well-known personalities, former presidents, to frontline social movements, to world-renowned artists and activists. You can find out more information on our website, cubanobel.org, or please, while you're there, sign our petition and share it. So why the Henry Reeve Brigade? The brigade was officially formed on September 19th, 2005, by the late Cuban leader Fidel Castro, who in response to Hurricane Katrina said, "We offer to train professionals willing to fight against death. We demonstrate that there is a response to many of the planet's tragedies. We offer lives." In August 2005, as Hurricane Katrina ripped through Louisiana, taking nearly 2,000 lives, a majority of them being Black lives, Cuba was the first country to offer immediate aid to the United States. Over 1,500 doctors and nurses volunteered to be deployed to the eye of the storm, along with 26 tons of donated Cuban medicine. But the US State Department first ignored and then rejected Cuba's offer. So the newly formed medical contingent was redeployed to countries in need, such as Pakistan, after the massive earthquake struck in October of the same year. With that same heart and courage, the brigade was named in honor of Henry Reeve, a 19-year-old US American who left his home in Brooklyn, New York, to join the Cuban struggle for liberation against the Spanish in the late 1800s. Henry died fighting for Cuba's independence. Fidel said it 15 years ago, "We offer lives." A few months ago, the current Cuban president, Díaz-Canel, welcomed home the first Henry Reeve Brigade that went into Europe to fight COVID-19. He said, quote, "You represent the victory of life over death, solidarity over selfishness." To date, the Henry Reeve Brigade has been fighting COVID-19 in nearly 30 countries. Last Saturday, I joined the Twitter storm on the anniversary of the brigade. And if you followed the hashtags, Cuba Saves Lives, Cuba Salva Vidas, Nobel for Cuban Doctors, you would see thousands of posts worldwide sharing grateful testimonies from COVID-19 survivors to foreign embassies. It personally made me quite emotional because I was fortunate to witness firsthand the brigade's work on the ground when I traveled to Haiti in 2013 to deliver birthing kits to a rural hospital after the 2010 massive earthquake. I witnessed that the Cuban medical mission did not just parachute in, but they worked alongside the Haitian health professionals to build a long-term, just and healthy recovery. Por fin, with all of that said, I am truly honored to open up this conversation and to introduce our guests. From our distinguished panel of Henry Reeve Brigadistas, we have Dr. José Armando Arronte Villamarín, National Coordinator of the Cuban Medical Brigade in Jamaica. We have Dr. Daymarelis Ortega Rodriguez, Chief of the Henry Reeve Brigade in Barbados, and the former Chief of the Cuban Medical Brigade in Antigua and Barbuda. We have Nurse Yandy Perez Perez, member of the Henry Reeve Brigade, also in Barbados, and previously was part of the Cuban Medical Mission in Vietnam from 2017 to 2019. And lastly, we have Dr. Jani Cabrera Paumir, member of the Henry Reeve Brigade in Belize, and she's on her first mission. As our facilitator and stirring up today's conversation, we have Vijay Prashad. Vijay is an Indian historian, editor, journalist, and he is the chief editor of Left Word Books and the director of the Tricontinental Institute for Social Research. He has also written more than 20 books, and his latest book about US imperialism is entitled Washington Bullets, with an introduction by Bolivia's Evo Morales. We also have with us Danny Glover, film director, actor, humanitarian, activist who has long been committed to the US-Cuba solidarity movement. So much so, I affectionately think of him as one of our padrinos, or one of our godfathers of the movement. Danny's activism extends to many places throughout the United States and throughout the world, and he currently serves as a UNICEF ambassador. So with great joy and excitement, I invite Danny Glover to share some opening remarks with us.
Well, what an extraordinary opportunity as we look at a very extraordinary mission that has been in existence for more than 60 years, and that's the work of Cuban doctors. I've had on many occasions to witness their work. In 2010 in Haiti, I've witnessed the work with Cuban doctors. I've had the opportunity to witness the work of Cuban doctors in Caracas, in the favelas. So the fact that we talk about them in relationship to a Nobel Peace Prize is extraordinary and meaningful at this time. I take offense, very much offense, at the idea of Cuban doctors being referred to as modern day slaves. I am the great grandson of an enslaved African, May Hunley. I am here, someone who I met myself personally, so I'm old enough. So I take, and I know some of those stories. So I take offense at the fact that we refer to that as that. And also, we should celebrate this work, this extraordinary moment of internationalism. At no time in the world do we need the kind of internationalism and in reference to healthcare than at this moment in the COVID-19 pandemic, the greatest pandemics in the last 100 years of civilization on the earth. So the idea that we are celebrating the work at that and the real work, the courage and the spirit of generosity that goes along with this as well, that it's institutionalized something that's more important than anything else, that all 8 billion people on this planet deserve life. All 8 billion people on this planet deserve healthcare, and not just the privileged few. And certainly the demonstration of that, the work of my Cuban brothers and sisters who are out there on the right there out there on the firing line, right there, doing that work is something that I'm honored and proud to be not only have witnessed, but to celebrate as well. And certainly the Henry, the brigade itself, the Henry Reeve Brigade has an extraordinary statement and the will of how people themselves can organize something extraordinary. And I have had an opportunity to visit Elan and visit the medical center that trains doctors. This past July last year, I had an opportunity to speak in front of graduating students who were going to give service in their own countries, whether it's from Namibia, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Caribbean, whether it's wherever it is in the world, Angola as well, to speak with those students and see them and know that they're doing the work that needs to be done to save humanity. Their contribution is immeasurable. Their contribution is powerful, and it's a statement of the world we can create. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Danny. That's a great and powerful opening statement. Before I invite the doctors and the nurse to talk about their experiences in their life, I'd like to say that the world is in awe of the Cuban Revolution, which began, well, it began a long time ago, but it succeeded for the first step in 1959, 144 kilometers off the shore of Florida of the United States, or in a very barbaric way to measure things, 90 miles off the coast of the United States. Brave Cuban people. In 1953, Fidel Castro, in his famous speech, which is called History Will Absolve Me, said that a people who, when they win something from oppression, never want to give it back. He said, mark my words, when a people seize something which has been denied them, they never want to give it back. Those were prophetic words. The very brave Cuban people who start their revolutionary process in 1959, despite a blockade, despite decades of an attempt by the United States government to overthrow not only the government in Cuba. It's very wrong to think that US policy is merely to overthrow the government in Cuba. The United States government, the ruling class, wants to overthrow the Cuban revolutionary process. They want to undermine the dignity and the advances made by the Cuban people. Amidst all those advances is Cuba's incredible healthcare system. You know, I'm from India. I wish we had a healthcare system like the Cuban healthcare system. Danny, I wish we had an ILAM which could train doctors from around Asia. And I must say, Danny, I wish we had a Henry Reeve Brigade that we from India could send doctors out into other parts of the world. Why is it that it's Chinese doctors, it's Cuban doctors, it's doctors from these socialist countries that are out there amongst the poorest of the world, not just in their own country, you know, helping save lives? In this middle of a COVID-19 pandemic, it's Cuban doctors, it's Chinese doctors who are overseas. I don't see any German doctors. I don't see any doctors from the United States. I want to personally salute the Cuban people, not only for the Henry Reeve Brigade, which we'll get to in a second, but for the Cuban Revolution, which is a light shining in a world that desperately needs more and more lights. So welcome to this discussion. For the next 40 odd minutes, I'll have the pleasure of talking to these very fine people. I'm going to start with José. He's right now in Jamaica. He was in Namibia in 2004, 2005, and arrived back in Havana for a meeting. José, you were right there 15 years ago when the Henry Reeve Brigade was created. Can you tell us a little bit about what you felt in that meeting with Fidel Castro, where this brigade was first announced?
Well, good night for everyone. Thank you for having me. Yes, in 2004, I traveled to Namibia as a coordinator of the Cuban medical team there. In 2005, when I was in a meeting at the Convention Palace Center in Havana, we were in a meeting and the Commander-in-Chief, Fidel Castro Ruz, came into the meeting. We were informed that some of the Cuban coordinators of the English language country maybe could be in charge of the group of 200 Cuban professionals to travel to New Orleans because the Katrina hurricane affected that place. In Cuba, in that moment, we have 1,200 Cuban professionals waiting to provide medical care to the population of that place in US. Of course, we were waiting, we were ready, but the answer, unfortunately, the answer of the government of the US in that moment was negative. A few days after that meeting with the Commander-in-Chief, the commander invited us, all the Cuban coordinator that has been with him in that meeting. It was the day that we celebrate today, the 15th anniversary. It was a big meeting where it was created the Henry Reeve Brigade, and I was there. Of course, I was so excited because that opportunity was for me very important in my life as a professional, as a person, of course, that tried to help other people.
Of course, the Cuban medical internationalism goes back to, well, 1960, when doctors went for the Chilean earthquake. And then I saw this in Algeria. In 1963, Cuban doctors went to Algeria to assist in the liberation struggle against the French colonialists. I mean, a moment of great bravery. But nonetheless, 2005, a new brigade was created, the Henry Reeve Brigade, even though there was this much longer history of medical internationalism, anti-colonial medicine, anti-capitalist medicine, let's be frank, medicine for the poor. You know, I want to go back to you, Jose, before I come to the others, because I want you to tell me a little bit about what you were doing in Namibia before this meeting in 2005, and also why you were interested to go to the United States, to New Orleans, to help the Americans, the richest country in the world. Why were you so interested to go to New Orleans? So a little bit about Namibia and then what you were thinking about in terms of going to New Orleans.
Well, as I told you before, I was in Namibia as a Cuban coordinator of the medical team. We were facing in Namibia. Namibia is a sub-Saharan country. We were facing a lot of tuberculosis, malaria, HIV, and other many other illnesses that we have to face, the Cuban medical team. But you know that Africa, Cuba have a friendship with Africa, because the human feeling that we the Cuban professionals have is that to support, to help the poorest people in the world. When I was in Havana, and I was selected because I was in an English language country. Of course, I felt in that moment, but I never in my life was imagined that I could travel to help to the people of the U.S. Because, but the most important thing is that we think that the health is a human right. And that is not the problem of the government. That is not the political matter. We are that's a human right, and that's why we were of course that we were sure that if we could travel in that moment to New Orleans, we could be helping a lot of many people in that place, in that city that was really affected by the Katrina hurricane.
I think it's very important to underline the fact that when New Orleans, when the United States was struck by a hurricane, the Cuban people didn't take the view that, well, this is a government that has been trying to overthrow us, so we don't care what happens to them. In fact, Fidel Castro, Jose, as a doctor, your reaction was, how do I get there to help them? I mean, it's a formidable reaction. I'm going to turn to Dr. Hani, who's now in Belize. You see, Jose was in Havana when the Henry Reeve Brigade was first created in 2005. But Hani, you are in Belize on your first medical mission outside Cuba. How does it feel to be a member of the Henry Reeve Brigade?
Good night for everybody. Yes, I think everybody knows that the Henry Reeve Brigade is a dream come true by our Invictus commander. And it represents for any Cuban doctor a great opportunity for pay that debt that we have with humanity. Be part for this project is a golden opportunity for us. The preparation and the dedication and the altruism that characterize that brigade is becoming in a big project for all of us. And I feel satisfied, too much satisfied to be part of this brigade, and proud with the profession we choose. And yes, I accept to be part of that. In this moment, I so excited I can't believe in this moment that I go to Belize to help people in this critical situation for the whole world, that is the pandemic to the COVID-19. And that I say to Vijay, we are a normal people, a real people, that we have faith, we have a family, but we need to do that I have to do in this moment. And this give to the people of Belize love, our knowledge. We have the knowledge and the preparation. It's just go for it. And this moment for me was unforgettable for me, and I think for all Cuban doctors like me.
I very much like, Hani, that you said that you have a debt to humanity. Now, medical students in India or in Brazil or in the United States or in the United Kingdom, they have debt to banks because they have to take enormous loans to go to medical school. So the only debt they think of often, not everybody, some people struggle with this, but they have debt to banks. You said we have a debt to humanity. We also use the word love, which is something that people rarely use in the world these days, I'm afraid, when it comes to talking about humanity. Che Guevara had that great line, the great feeling of a revolutionary is that feeling of love for people.
Yeah.
Daymarelis, you are in Barbados,
Yes.
and you are a urologist. Am I right? You are a urologist. When you train to be a doctor, I'm trying to think of what Hani said about a debt to humanity. Why did you decide to become a doctor?
So I decided to become a doctor. So first of all, good night, good evening for everybody. So for me, I'm proud. I'm proud to be a professional. It's very, very proud to be a professional in public health, like a doctor in my country, in Cuba. This is very, very important for me because, I grew up with the revolution because I love my people, and I love Fidel Castro. I'm Fidelist. I'm a Fidelist. I touch our commander-in-chief of to be internationalist is to say about all the humanity. So when I decided to study medicine, to be a doctor, so I think all the time, every time, my commitment with the people is not only with Cuba, it's with the poor people, because I feel my commitment with all the people that need my service I provide. I'm here in Barbados, but when finish here in Barbados, I'm ready to go and not anywhere of them to support, to provide my service for the people that need us. This is the reason, because I'm did in my heart, in my mind, the solidarity, the humanity, and the Cuban revolution.
You were born inside revolutionary Cuba,
Yes.
Daymarelis. You were born during the revolution, meaning the revolution was just a few years old. 6 years old or so. I'm not going to give away your age, sorry, but you and I are the same age, so it's fair to say
worry, no problem.
that as the revolution was getting its legs, you were born. What has the Cuban Revolution meant for you? You said that your heart is in the Cuban Revolution. What does the Cuban Revolution mean for you?
So the Cuban Revolution means for me the Cuba is the revolution that demonstrating for the world that the better world is possible. This is the Cuban Revolution. We are demonstrating for the world it's possible to change the world. It's possible the population getting right to the life, to the education, to the dignity humanity. So, you know, I learned during my formation, my study in the primary school, in the secondary school, in the university, I learned, I got in the history of the Cubans. So I have in my veins, the revolution. I defend, I liked my revolution, and I'm so sorry. Is, you know, some in Cuba, we are saying we are died like alive, you know, because I'm a revolution. I'm a Cuban revolutionary. I love. You know.
I like that a lot, because what you're saying is that the Cuban Revolution is not separate from you. You are part of it. It's in your veins and so on. Well, sitting next to you is Yandy, who, you know, is also in Barbados with you in the Henry Reeve Brigade. He was in Vietnam before. Yandy, I want to know, what is the day like for you when you're in the hospital in Barbados? What's the day like? What's an average, ordinary day like for a medical worker like yourself?
So, first of all, good evening or good afternoon for everybody. So, the first thing when we arrive to hospital is asking each other, "You good? You feel good? You're right." So, when in the moment where we start working with COVID patients, mind have to be focused just in work with the patient. You have to be just 100% sure you are sure you have to do it. You have to do it. So we go inside. We take the APP. So it's difficult because you see people really sick, really ill. So it's difficult for us, but we are there for trying to save them, to give our hand, do whatever they need. So support them, support each other. It's difficult, but we do it. No doubt, we do it.
I mean, one of the, you know, like Danny, I've met Cuban doctors over, you know, the last few decades, and I'm always quite in admiration of the very difficult places Cuban doctors have been. For instance, in West Africa during the Ebola crisis, another very difficult situation to work in. Hani, you're working right now in Belize in a COVID ward, in a hot ward, where some of the most sick patients with COVID-19, I mean, I looked at the numbers, you know, there are not an enormous number of cases. There's about 2,000 cases in Belize with COVID-19, not like, you know, in the United States where there's 200,000 people dead. But let me just say that even 2,000 patients is a lot. How has it been for you personally to be treating people in a hot ward during this pandemic?
Well, in this moment, we have to do a hard work here in Belize City with the patient with COVID-19. Specifically, I treat critical patients, ventilated patients, and yes, it's normal. It's normal, like a human beings. We feel fear in that moment, but the thing is that we have all the preparation, we have all the knowledge, and we have the soul for that. In the moment when you speak and cure and treat any patient with COVID-19, we are the difference because the patient can identify us, can identify that we are Cubans because it's a big difference. There is a remarkable difference with the another doctors in the world. It's not about the medicine program. It's not about the specialties. It's about the humanity. This is the difference. And we accompany our patient to recover from the COVID-19. And in the moment that we discharge a patient with the COVID-19, we feel satisfied, we feel proud, and the patients recognize our job, our labor in that critical moment. And here in Belize City, in everywhere, the people know that I am Cuban, and the people in everywhere talk about us, talk about our brigade and our job here, and the necessity in this moment for our brigade still helping Belize to fight with COVID-19. And this is the objective of our commander create our brigade is to serve to people of the whole world and deserve the recognize the patients and the all people that have an opportunity to show our honorable job.
It's an honorable job because, honey, very large parts of the world, people are stuck inside their homes. They're not even going out of their own homes because they're scared of the disease. And yet, of course, Daymarelis, Yandy, Hani, Jose are not only outside your homes, you're in another country. You're not only in another country, you're in the hot ward, the hot COVID ward, the critical care ward in another country. That's a pretty remarkable thing. I mean, if we just stop for a minute, let's stop talking for a minute and just think about the fact that this is what you're doing. You're in another country. Jose, this is a pandemic. It's crazy. You know, I actually take offense when people say it's not such a bad thing because 1 million people have died around the world. It's a terrible, terrible disease. Have you been posted anywhere where you've seen patients struggle in the way patients are struggling, those who are afflicted with this disease? Have you had this kind of experience before?
Well, let me tell you that here in, for example, in Jamaica, we have been working in the 4 regions and the 14 parishes of the country, of the island. For example, I can tell you that the Cuban medical team has been saving more than 5,000 lives in Jamaica since January to August this year, for example. We have been doing we have seen 280,000 patients since January to August in Jamaica. Our team in Jamaica has been facing have been working in the rec zone all the time, the front line. You know, for example, the 60 or 70% of the swabbing test that has been done in Jamaica has been done by the Cuban medical professional. If I can tell you that we have been between 150 to 200 Cuban professionals working all the time in the front line, because I didn't tell you before that we have the Cuban medical team in Jamaica are 420 Cuban professionals at this moment. And really, we have been feeling fair, of course, because when we see a patient really in a very bad condition, of course, we try to save, and sometimes you don't have the possibility because you have not everything that you need in your hands to save. But what the patient never will lack is the feeling of humanism and the feeling that we, all the Cuban professionals, as others in the world, of course, but the Cuban professional we have in our heart trying to save life for the world. That's the most important thing that we have been facing during the COVID-19 pandemic.
You know, I just wanted to tell you that today, Jose, I went to look at some statistics about doctors in different countries. And, you know, the comparison is with the United States and Cuba. In Cuba, there are 8.2 doctors per 1,000 Cubans. 8.2, well, there's no such thing as 0.2 of a doctor, but you get the point. Statistics are very bizarre. There's just about more than 8 doctors per 1,000 Cubans. In the United States, there's 2.6 doctors per 1,000 people. And if you break this down, most American doctors are specialists. You know, they are there doing heart surgeries and brain surgeries, and they're amazing doctors. You know, they are very accomplished, brilliant doctors, but there's not so many doctors who do basic medicine for the poor and so on. But even the number 8.2 doctors in Cuba per 1,000, and in the United States, 2.6 doctors per 1,000, that's a pretty remarkable difference. And Cuba, if you don't mind my saying, I mean, I'm from India, so I think I have the right to say it. Cuba is a relatively poor country, you know, compared to the United States, and yet it has invested so much in healthcare. Jose, tell us a little bit about this focus of your country with healthcare, which, you know, lifts up the whole Cuban doctor issue to a mythical level almost. Tell us a little bit about health and the Cuban Revolution.
Well, let me tell you that before the 1959, the health situation in Cuba was really bad. We got just only 6,000 doctors after the triumph of the revolution, because the rest, the half of the doctor migrate to the US and other countries migrated. The infant mortality rate was really high, more than 60 per 1,000 live birth. The life expectancy was around 60 years old. As Cuba is not a rich country, we have and we have to face the blockade. We have to develop our human resources. That's why we created the Faculty of Medicine, the medical school in different provinces. And in the decade of 80, the family doctors and nurse program was created by the commander-in-chief Fidel Castro, Rus. I have to tell you that the 100% of the population is covered by doctors and nurses, and they live within the community. The family doctors and nurses, they live in the community, within the community, and of course they feel the same problem. They have to face the same problem that the people that live in the community where they, and we use any kind of tool at the primary health care that we try to transform the health situation at the community. That's one of the most important things, the strong primary health care that we have in Cuba. And that's what allows us to cover the 100% of the population in Cuba, and to send doctors and nurses and biomedical engineers and other technicians to many countries worldwide.
And you know, this idea of providing healthcare, I want to return to the internationalism section a little bit. Daymarelis, I haven't told you this, but one of my great heroes was Thomas Sankara. When I was a young person, and Thomas Sankara conducted the revolution in then Upper Volta, which he renamed Burkina Faso, or Land of Upright People. You know, for our generation, Daymarelis, it was a moment of great hope, because on the African continent, we saw somebody who was like Hugo Chavez before Hugo Chavez, you know, a great leader of his people. And then they killed him in 1987. About a decade later, 15 years later, you went to Burkina Faso, Daymarelis, to serve there. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience working in Burkina Faso, a country that could have become a model for the world?
So yes, I was in Burkina Faso from 2004, 2006, 2 years. 2 years, like especially like a doctor. I working in Barbuda, so it's the city, is the big city in Burkina, is the economic city in Burkina Faso. When I was in Burkina, you know, unfortunately, the Thomas Sankara was there, you know. Thomas Sankara is not like in America is the Che Guevara. So Thomas Sankara is the Che Guevara to Africa, you know? Yes. So many people in Africa was the first experience of Antigua for me. So very hard because, you know, Cuba is poor, is a country poor, but Africa is another world, is another continent, it's totally different to Cuba. So I wrote in a different system. When I hit with Africa, wow, I suffer because I saw too near me the suffering human, the poverty, extreme poverty, the people suffering too much. So I remember many times I crying because it's different, the system hell. So and my friend, I remember some friends, some doctor, comprehensive doctor, general doctor, crying when they don't kind to do something for some patient that maybe soon they died. Wow, we suffering in Africa because Africa is too hard, too hard, it's different. So I believe some 20 years ago, I believe the situation now maybe are different, I'm not sure. But Africa was the first experience for me to have. So I tried to do the best effort for me in order to help the people, to help the children. So, but I can't forget Africa. Africa, I remember I have Africa in my memory because it was hard. It was my first experience outside of Cuba like that.
Well, it's very unfair for me.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, please, Danny.
Thomas Sankara was a musician. He began and he started the most renowned film of Africa, a festival of African film in the world today, FESPACO. He was an extraordinary leader, but we also have to think about the renowned leader, Amilcar Cabral as well. Amilcar Cabral from Guinea-Bissau. And what we refer to him as the teacher. Imagine if some of these leaders had been able to carry out the platforms in terms of democracy and independence and the end of colonialism. Imagine what kind of strength but they were all assassinated. Interesting enough. I just wanted to say again that, you know, I had to thank Gail Reed, who's, you know, a Cuban American citizen who's been very much involved in Elan, getting and recruiting American citizen students to come to Cuba and study medicine at no expense. I remember meeting in 2019 when I was there at the graduation, meeting a young woman from somewhere in the US, a young African-American woman, because you know, the first thing happens is that you learn Spanish the first year. You learn Spanish because all the lessons are taught in Spanish. So she told me that she received, when she finished medical school, passed her internship and all the things she did, she had received a job because she knew how to speak Spanish. She did not know how to speak Spanish when she came to Cuba, but it broadened the range of her own concept of herself in relationship to medicine, in relationship to you know, in service. I have a great friend of mine who served in the Congo, and she served in Haiti doing she's a medical doctor, and she served in Haiti doing that. If she had the same kind of foundation that was provided that the Cuban doctors have, in terms of when they step off that plane, when they're there, and they have a whole country behind them. They have a whole country supporting their work, wherever it is. They have that.
You know, it's exactly true what you said about Sankara, Cabral, you know, Chris Hani. I mean, not to plug my book, Danny, but this is why my new book is called Washington Bullets. Unfortunately for humanity, and sadly. Well,
I'm old enough to have met Chris Hani and been involved in the anti-apartheid movement. So I'm a little
Danny,
bit older than everybody else.
Danny, you know that I'm going to write your biography.
No.
You know that that's happening. From Atul Fugat to the Cuban doctors. That's the biography.
Yeah.
Daymarelis, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I say when I was in Africa, I remember I know that I have the opportunity to interact with some doctors that they study in Cuba for a long time. You know, they study in Cuba, the primary, the secondary, the university in Cuba. They are doctor, they are a specialist, surgeon, maxillofacial surgeon, general surgeon. So many people, when you interact with the people, you know, Africa, the first problem, the first situation when I arrived to Africa was the language, because Africa has different dialects. You know, this is the problem. In Burkina Faso, the official language is French, but the population use more dialect. You know, it's very complicated for us. But those doctors help me to learn, to try to interact with the patient. Sometimes when I was in the supermarket, in the street, the people, when you ask the people, are you Cuban? You ask, you know the Cuba? They say, no, I don't know Cuba. But they know Fidel Castro. They know Fidel Castro. And I believe Africa have a relationship with Cuban for a long time. Many doctors, many engineers, many technicians was graduated in Cuba in different universities called Thomas Sankara development some program in order to develop the human resource, but unfortunately this program was interrupted, broken when there are the new government, the new statement. But Africa was for me excellent experience. I know Africa, and I have Africa in my memory for forever.
Wow. I just want to take the opportunity to say that if not for the Cuban doctors and soldiers in 1987 who defeated the South African apartheid army at the Battle of Quito Cunivale, if not for the Cuban soldiers, I don't know if apartheid would have fallen in South Africa. And when I come back to you, Danny, I'm going to talk to you about Nelson Mandela, your visit to South Africa, but we know, you and I know, that without those Cuban soldiers in Angola, there would be no free South Africa in 1994. So I salute not only the Cuban doctors, but also those Cuban soldiers who fell in the Battle of Punibale.
Descendants of West Africa. Number of those soldiers were descendants of West Africa, and the Battle of Sidikalaba, and the extraordinary moment in history that took place at that moment that led to the peace agreement, peace negotiation, and Nelson Mandela would tell himself his freedom as well.
That's right. I mean, it's an amazing and important period, which I just hope we don't forget.
It's an amazing moment in history. It's an amazing triumph for a small nation that had been in Africa, in the Congo in 1960. And certainly after the death of Patrice Lumumba, it's an amazing accomplishment of building solidarity, internationalism. We're talking about internationalism. You talk about men and women years ago, in the early parts of the 20th century and the mid parts of the 20th century, the levels of internationalism that happened. I mean, when I met Walter Sisulu, he talked about the relationship that he had and the information and the exchange of information that he had with African-American scholars in the 1930s. So this whole attempt to some denounce or internationalism is something that's been happening particularly since World War II, at the end of World War II. In every moment that it is taking these efforts, in a sense, whether it's constructed around labor, organized labor, an attempt to isolate various countries from each other, or this whole moment of independence. You know, it was Martin Luther King, 1957. Where was he in 1957? In Ghana, at the independence celebration of Ghana. Martin Luther King. So all these became these bridges of internationalism, you know, and certainly this medical internationalism that brings people together and everything else, because power wants to diminish our expectation. Diminish our expectation. So when you're providing medical care to citizens in Belize, or whether they're in Jamaica or wherever they are, if you're providing everything else, it elevates the expectations, their own expectations. And a small country is able to do this and train so many doctors to be able to do this and serve humanity in a way, that's unacceptable. That's what it is.
It's unacceptable because it's humanity, and they don't want humanity. They just don't want humanity. We are here to celebrate the 15 years of the Henry Reeve Brigade, but we're also here, and I'd like people to go to the website cubanobel.org. We're also here because, well, these Cuban doctors, José, Yanni, Daymarelis, Yandy, they have been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. José, what did it feel like when you heard that you had been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize?
Well, I never imagined that nomination to the Nobel Peace Prize for me and for all the Cuban professionals that has been working very hard worldwide for many years. I don't know if we will get the Nobel Peace Prize or not, but the main situation is that the intention is that the people worldwide recognize the effort and the humanism and the internationalism of the Henry Reeve Brigade and all the Cuban professionals that we have been working in many countries during these years. Of course, if we receive, we will be very, very happy. And we really want to say thank you for this kind of webinar, of activity, and the effort of many people around the world that has been trying to to get together many people trying to support this intention. But the most important, I think, is the example that the Cuban health professional has been giving for the world during this time. At this moment, you know that to face the COVID-19 pandemic, for the first time, we have had a Cuban medical brigade in Europe. Of course, that's for us, and in some island of the British Island, in different places, and of course, that's the example that, as I told you before, that is not the political issue. That's the humanism, humanitarian job that we have been doing, and of course, that's the most important thing that we are trying to do. But we are not doing for the price. That's what I want to say. That we are not doing this for the price, to get the price. You know, we are doing this what Gianni has been talking about, what Daymarelis has been talking about, or Yendi, or many other Cubans that have been that are working at this currently in many countries. We are not trying to get the prize. We are doing because we feel in our heart, bottom of our heart, that we need to save people that need our help, our support, because mainly are the poorest people in many countries. Because the private medicine, of course, the people that have a high level, like a high income level, of course, can get the medical care in a private places, in a best hospital. But we are talking about the people that Daymarelis spoke before in Africa, that we saw the people, the Bushman, the Himba, the tribes that even are living in conditions that we never imagined, that we saw, as we saw in Africa, for example, and other places that we have been working.
So Jose says that if the phone call comes from the Nobel committee and says you won the prize, he says we'll be happy. Hani, what will be your reaction the day that the Nobel committee calls every one of you in the Henry Reeve Brigade individually and says you have won the prize? How will you feel, Hani?
But the first thing that already all of us, we have a biggest prize. That prize is the satisfaction that we feel when to do our job, our labor in that situation. And the most important thing, that our brigade is accessible for all the people. It's accessible for all the world, even social classes, even bank account, even medical security. Is the most important thing that characterizes our brigade. But the Nobel Prize is just one more is just for the all people recognize our job. It's just a thing. It's not a big deal. The most important thing for us is the people, is our patients, is safe patients, recover patients. This is the most important challenge for our brigade in this moment. This is a secondary thing for us. This is just okay. It's the Nobel Prize. Okay, it's okay, but no, it's the big thing for us, the Nobel Prize.
The most important thing is our patients. The most important thing is people. The most important thing is their recovery. Yanni, Jose, Daymarelis, Yandy, this was very interesting. I'm going to turn now briefly to Danny Glover. Danny has had a very long association with the Cuban doctors, going back, a very long time. Danny, when was the first time you came into contact directly with the Cuban medical brigades, Cuban doctors?
Well, the first time for me was in Caracas in 2004. It was just before the inauguration of the Henry Reeve Brigade. And I happened to go, I remember that day, I happened to go to the Fidela with the group, with the delegation. We were on a delegation. And I went to the home of someone who lived in the Fidela, and a section of the home was established where the doctors could treat patients. And I thought that was remarkable. Right in that was a section of that home where doctors were able to treat patients who perhaps had not had medical care, consistent medical care in their life. And of course, the most amazing moment was to travel to Haiti after the earthquake and to go and visit the facilities, the places where Cuban doctors were, and also Venezuelan doctors as were. And they had established there in Port-au-Prince the best organized facilities in the most devastated communities in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, to provide service. They were there. And also I happened to be also in Namibia in 2005 as well. So I've had an opportunity to the pleasure and the honor to in any places where I've gone, and particularly in Africa, and that I've been able to witness and to be in the presence of Cuban doctors over the last more than 15 years.
Danny, let's turn away from the Cuban doctors for a minute and from Cuba, and let's look a little bit at the United States, if that's okay, because I'm trying my best, Danny, to understand the mentality of Marco Rubio, of Mike Pompeo, of Donald Trump. I mean, what is wrong with them? And on top of that, Human Rights Watch, what is wrong with them? Why are they on this campaign to vilify the Henry Reeve Brigade and the Cuban doctors? Help us understand that a little bit, Danny.
Well, I think we all understand the purpose of denouncing anything successful. This is a successful model. It's a model. It's a potential. It's potential. As we talk, as everyone has said, there is a better world. How do we make the better world? And in that world, the crisis, whether we're talking about climate change, which they're deniers of, the same ones deniers of that, whether we're talking about poverty, whether we talk about healthcare within the United States, and all those things, they don't even recognize those particular things. And even in their own communities, they don't take the things that are happening in this particular community as well. So there is an attempt to really, this is how power tries to hold on to itself, to maintain its hold over people, and allowing them to have not simply what they are willing to get, but what they need. People need health care. The same people who need health care that Cuban doctors service in countries, in developing countries, in poor countries, they're poor communities in that. If once you acknowledge that the Cubans are doing what they're doing, then you have to acknowledge the faults and certainly the travesty of their own healthcare system here. I was in New Orleans at Katrina, right after Katrina. I spent Christmas and I spent New Year's, that whole almost 2 weeks in New Orleans right at that year of 2005. And I saw everything, the devastation of a hurricane, a devastation of a hurricane that was in New Orleans, but the same, and with the loss of life, but the same magnitude of hurricane was in Cuba, no loss of life. So there was no preparation and everything. So the preparation, I've witnessed those places. And certainly from my vantage point, it would have been a great service if Cuban doctors would have seen that. But you can't allow people to see that. You can't allow people to see other possibilities in which their lives change and their lives are transformed. Because they, as I said, then they have different kind of expectations around governance and the demands that they make in that. And I would hope that when we think about that particularly now, use this pandemic, because who does it impact the most? Poor people, people of color, brown, Black, Asian, people of color. That's who it impacts the most. That's what happened in Vente. And certainly that's because of all the preconditions that African Americans particularly have. And we know the history of that. I don't have to recount the history of that. I don't have to count the history of segregation. I remember when and we all know when the AMA, the American Medical Association, said that Medicare was what? Was socialized medicine. They referred to Medicare and the fight for Medicare. So all those things always a struggle. But as we say during the moments of Portuguese countries, the liberation of Portuguese colonies, a luta continua. The struggle continues. But the struggle is continued, it's the truth. That's all we ask. We want the truth. We try to fight for the truth. And when you're servicing, let us know the truth. Unpredictable side. I mean, you take for instance, you take the whole idea in American culture about, and it started early in TV shows, how glorified doctors are. Imagine that. I don't care whether it's MASH in the military situation. I don't care if it's ER. I don't care. There's this glorification of doctors in all this sense. You get this sense, but it's false. That glorification is a fabric of the other story, of the other lie that we have. And then you look at all the conditions, yet as you say, popular culture is a part of this illusion of what is really happening, not the truth of what is really happening.
So, Danny, that's a really important point about the glorification of doctors, ER, et cetera, and then the reality of the medical system.
Yeah.
When are you and I going to make a film about the Cuban doctors, Danny?
Well, I'm more than proud to be a part of that. More than proud to be a part of that. More than proud, man. I have such great respect for Cuban doctors. I mean, and the whole idea with the earthquake in Pakistan, them sending female doctors, boom, understanding the cultural framework that they're working in and respecting that, having respect for that. In so many different ways you can count it. There's something about going to doctors, and those of us who have good doctors know that there's something special. There's a certain trust that they bring as well. Not only is the courage there and everything else, but people getting the trust. Because they're not there in any way to exploit the situation. What they're trying to do is that to make the situation and correct the situation and deal with the reality of the situation. So there's trust too. I'm sure that if we had patients from Sierra Leone, patients from during the Ebola crisis, or from Liberia during the Ebola crisis, you find that Cuban doctors and the witnesses that those people, what they witnessed was something extraordinary and something that they had never had in their lives and in their community. And so they would have their own story to talk about that. So we need to go around the world and just everywhere we're Cuban doctors have been, we need to talk about the interview all the people who've been serviced by Cuban doctors.
It's a Netflix series, actually. It's a Netflix series which starts from Elam and goes outwards.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you in a little bit, but I wanted to just make a few comments about the campaign for the Nobel Prize. Again, people should go to cubanobel.org, join the campaign. Danny Glover is a major supporter of this campaign, which I think is really not just a tribute to the campaign, but it once again shows, Danny, how much we love and admire the leadership you show on all the issues that matter. I just want to say that and I don't know if this is the correct thing to say, but I want to say that the Nobel Prize for Peace has acquitted itself quite badly over the years. They've awarded that prize to people who I don't think deserved it, such as Barack Obama and so on. I don't think they deserved the Nobel Prize for Peace. If you don't mind me saying so, friends, I'm saying that it's not that the Cuban doctors will be honored by the Nobel Peace Prize. I would believe that the Nobel Peace Prize will be honored by associating itself with the Henry Reeve Brigade and the Cuban doctors. So we are not asking for the prize for the Cuban doctors. We are asking for the prize for the Nobel Peace Prize. It needs a prize finally, and let its prize be awarding that prize to the Cuban doctors. I'm going to disappear now. Danny, would you like to make some concluding remarks before? I know Angelica is impatient to close us off, or shall we just go on forever? That's a temptation.
I know, but one thing is that I could go on forever. I can look at these extraordinary faces forever. And sometimes I'm trying to imagine what they've been through, what they've encountered, the challenges that they've had, the ways in which they've, in their creative way, in their human way of overcoming those challenges and leaving such an indelible mark on history, on the history of human compassion, the history of choices that are made, political choices that are made, who lives, who doesn't live. And there they are right there.
Wonderful. Well, y'all, you heard the truth. What a heartfelt conversation, right? Muchísimas gracias. A huge thank you to all who participated in tonight's conversation, our interpreters, our committee members behind the scenes helping with the technology, Vijay, for your strong support on the mic, and Danny Glover, both of you, thank you so much for your wisdom and your heart's work. On behalf of the campaign committee, we want to give un abrazo lleno de cariño, huge hug of affection to all of our Cuban sheroes and heroes in white robes. Thank you all.
All right,
and we also want to thank each of you.
All right.
And we also want to thank each of you for the personal stories that you shared with us tonight. We have so much gratitude for the brigadistas as far as East Timor. And we're also very thankful for the viewers who joined us in this critical time. So we have some calls to action, but before I jump to those, Danny, did you want to say something else? I don't want to cut you off. We can go all night. I'm here. So is there anything else you wanted to say, Danny?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So part of this gathering tonight is hopefully all of you are compelled to join this campaign, the Cuban Nobel campaign. And as Vijay mentioned, our website again is cubanobel.org. So please sign our petition and circulate it widely, worldwide. And then I have a couple important shout outs and announcements in respects to some of the other work that has been organized around US-Cuba solidarity. So help us save lives, get involved with another campaign, the Saving Lives campaign, which is a US-Cuba-Canada collaboration to fight COVID-19. This campaign is calling for medical, clinical, and scientific collaboration with Cuba. And they have some specific demands they are mobilizing around. So please go to their website, savinglives.us-cuba. cubannormalization.org. Y tranquilos, we'll put all of this on our Facebook page, so you'll have the links to all these different organizations and movement work. And we also urge you to learn more about US policies and their impact on the people's lives in Cuba. I am especially thrilled to share the news of a must-see 3-part documentary series entitled The War on Cuba. It's premiering on October 9th. Do not miss this. And did I mention the executive producers are Oliver Stone and our very own Danny Glover. One of these episodes focuses on the war on doctors and has an inside look at the Cuba's international medical program through the tens and thousands of Cuban doctors working in dozens of countries around the world, providing free healthcare to vulnerable populations. You heard all of their testimonies and their stories this evening. So you have to see this documentary, which is also all told through the eyes of a young Cuban journalist. So I suggest you go to bellyofthebeastcuba.com. Again, bellyofthebeastcuba.com to find out the latest of when that premiere is happening and how to watch it. And lastly, well, 2 other points, because Danny mentioned Gail Reed. So I want to give a shout out to Gail Reed of Medic, Medic, medicc.org. You'll have an opportunity to learn more about their work there. Check out the Medic Review, which is the only English language peer-reviewed medical journal on Cuban medicine. So shout out to Gail. And lastly, we dare you to dream or to help somebody else dream. Here in the United States, we have an opportunity to provide full scholarships, thanks to Cuba, to students who are interested in applying to the Latin American School of Medicine, ELAM. So please go to ifconews.org. Again, we'll post all of these links. And the application deadline is November 1st. So get focused on dreaming big and applying to medical school in Cuba, because it is one of the greatest achievements of the Cuban Revolution. With all of that said, I am so grateful for all of you. Thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned for more webinars and opportunities to exchange with our campaign. Thank you all.